Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib, trying to put together the generic resignation, what Suella Braverman had to say in the House yesterday, and Mark's report there, where just things don't seem to be getting any better. Ben, what do you make of the situation?
Well, I think Mark's done some excellent work, as ever, in France, revealing what I think many of us knew intuitively, that the people smugglers are not deterred at all by any of the measures that the French government or the British government have taken so far, including, obviously, Rwanda. And I don't think Rwanda would act as a deterrent, even if it was in full swing. You know, the maximum number of people we're told could go to Rwanda is in the low thousands. And we've got tens of thousands of people coming across from France. And the small risk of being deported to Rwanda, assuming that scheme ever gets off the ground, will never be a deterrent. I mean, what we've seen in Mark's report is a really well-organized, slick people smuggling operation, which the French law enforcement authorities have no real interest in busting up. And even though we've paid a couple of $100 million over the last few years, and we've promised another $500 million, they're not going to do it because it's not in their interest to do it. The French want to get rid of the problem as much as we don't want the problem. So we're in conflict with France. There's no association with France that is going to result in this problem going away. And any schemes like Rwanda, any desire to control or deter the flow of boats through deterrent is not going to work. What I've said right from the beginning, and I'm going to say it again if I may, is that the only way to control your borders is to control your borders, which is to prevent people from coming into your country in the first place. But what's happened in Western democracies is that, for reasons that aren't entirely clear to me, I think I can have a stab at them, but for reasons that aren't entirely clear to me, governments across the Western world have given up policing borders. We don't see borders as the sacrosanct definition of the territory of our nation states. We won't even
stab as to why that is.
Go
on, you said you were going to have a stab as to why that is. Have a stab.
Okay, well, I think the political classes which govern us have come to believe, wrongly in my opinion, that the global good is served through global policies, that nation states are parochial in their nature, that national interests end up creating conflict with other nations, and the best way to go forward is on a kind of global cooperative basis. And we've seen that in spades, of course, in the European Union, where literally borders have been removed with the Schengen zone. And in Italy, where Meloni came to power promising to stop the boats. And remember, Meloni's got a large body of water between Italy and Northern Africa, where Italian naval vessels could easily intercept these much bigger boats, board them and take them back to Libya. But there's no political will to do it in Italy. Meloni's completely broken her promises. The Western Balkans similarly don't do it. Greece has had a stab at it, but won't do it. The British government won't intercept the boats in the Channel. And what we've got to do is enforce our borders. That's the only way we're going to stop these boats from coming.
Yeah, and how do you propose we do that? I mean, I presume you are, along with Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick, calling then to come out of the ECHR. But that's just, I mean, I put it to you, that's just not going to happen. It won't get through Parliament. It just won't. I mean, we've seen the reaction from within the Conservative Party. We know what the Lords would do with that. We know what Labour thinks about that and the other parties. And Reform, although you're polling well, you're not necessarily going to get that many seats or indeed any in Parliament. You may just help Labour. So, you know, how do you... It's easy to say get control of our borders. How?
Well, I mean, it's a physical process. And I don't think the ECHR, frankly, is relevant to the physical process of controlling your borders. Under Article 33 of the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, we have the right to take preventative measures against those seeking to illegally enter our territorial waters. And what that means is Border Force needs to stop acting as a taxi service. It needs to stop those boats at the 12.5-mile point and require them to turn round. And if they don't turn round, they need to be forced to turn round. And yes, that is a physical exercise, and that will result in some people in the Channel having their lives put in danger because they have willfully tried to enter the United Kingdom illegally. And that's what we have to do. The ECHR has no jurisdiction on what happens in our territorial waters. It only has jurisdiction once people are actually on a British boat or on land. And that's where we're making our mistake. We're putting them on our boats, bringing them back to our country, and then giving them the full protection of the lefty lawyers, the ridiculous ECHR, which, by the way, for separate reasons, I think we need to get out of, because the European Convention of Human Rights, as enforced by the European Court of Human Rights, has gone completely overboard in the last 20 years. You know, I'm just going to digress for a second, but I think it's important. In all the time from 1946 to 1995, it only issued, when it was set up in 46 to 1995, it only issued 1,000 adjudications against nation states. Since then, it's issued another 23,000 adjudications. And because it's guided only by a set of conventions, not by any democratically elected legislature, it goes on interpreting those conventions in ever more progressive ways, establishing effectively new laws that have not been scrutinized by any democratic legislature, as I say. And in my view, actually, when an authority makes laws and enforces them on people in an undemocratic way, that in itself is a breach of their human rights. So I would contend the European Court of Human Rights is in fact acting against the human rights of the British nation, as indeed it is against the French, the Germans, and every other member state which is now a member of it. The ECHR is out of control.
OK, we've got to control you there, Ben, and we've run out of time, but thank you. Very forthright comments. You've made that very, very clear as to where you stand and what the UK should do.